It began with a quiet breach, one that wasn't supposed to exist. Deep within Clarence House, behind sealed vault doors and decades of silence, something long considered untouchable had been accessed. And when Catherine, Princess of Wales, emerged hours later, the weight of history was written across her face. This wasn't just about jewelry. It was about legacy, memory, and a name the palace rarely dared to speak aloud: Diana, Princess of Wales. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The visit itself had been arranged with a level of discretion that bordered on secrecy. There were no official diary entries, no public acknowledgements, no prepared statements to soften the edges of what was about to unfold. Reports suggest the arrival was timed precisely, slipping between routine engagements and carefully managed appearances, as if the very act needed to exist outside the normal rhythm of royal life. Clarence House, long regarded as a place of controlled access and quiet authority, became the center of a moment that insiders now describe as deeply unusual, even by palace standards. Staff movement was reportedly restricted. Corridors cleared. Administrative logs kept deliberately vague. It is whispered in certain circles that even senior aides were not fully briefed, a move that signaled something far more sensitive than a routine archival review. And then there was the vault, a place rarely spoken of, let alone accessed. Various interpretations suggest it houses items that exist in a delicate space between personal belonging and institutional custody artifacts, tied not just to individuals, but to narratives the monarchy has long tried to shape, preserve, and at times contain. Access to such a space is not granted lightly. It requires authorization that moves through layers of protocol, each one designed to prevent exactly the kind of moment that was now unfolding. Yet, on that day, those layers parted, and Catherine stepped through. What happened inside remains, officially, unspoken. But insiders whisper that time seemed to stretch, that the atmosphere shifted in a way even seasoned palace staff could not quite explain. There are suggestions of documents reviewed, cases unlocked, histories revisited in silence, and at the center of it all, one object long rumored, rarely confirmed, rested in a place it was never meant to remain forever. When Catherine finally reappeared, she was not alone. In her possession, according to those who claim knowledge of the moment, was a sealed case. No markings, no identifiers, but guarded with a level of intensity that made its importance impossible to ignore. The reaction was immediate, though not in the way one might expect. There were no headlines at first, no announcements. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, deliberate silence that replaced earlier denials with something far more telling. Because in the world of the monarchy, silence is rarely empty, it is strategic. It allows speculation to breathe, to grow, to take shape before the institution decides how, or if, it will respond. And in that silence, the whispers began to spread. Media insiders, those who track the subtle shifts within royal operations, started to notice patterns that no longer aligned. They spoke of something historic, of a movement behind closed doors that could not remain hidden for long. But what Catherine retrieved wasn't just hidden, it had been deliberately kept out of reach for years, buried beneath layers of royal control. Long before it vanished into royal obscurity, the Spencer Tiara was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of defiance, identity, and a woman who refused to be erased. And now, after decades in the shadows, its sudden reappearance has ignited questions the monarchy can no longer contain. The story of the tiara does not begin in a vault or under royal supervision. It begins within the Spencer bloodline itself, a lineage that carried its own quiet pride long before it intersected with the House of Windsor. Passed down through generations, the tiara was never designed to be an institutional artifact. It was personal, intimate, a reflection of heritage that existed outside the rigid structures of royal protocol. And when Diana, Princess of Wales, stepped into the global spotlight, she didn't just wear it, she transformed it. Reports suggest that its presence on her wedding day was more than a stylistic choice, it was a declaration. A subtle but unmistakable assertion that her identity would not be swallowed whole by the crown. That single moment changed everything. From that point forward, the tiara became inseparable from Diana's public image. It appeared not just as an accessory, but as a symbol loaded with meaning: resilience, independence, and over time, quiet rebellion. And yet, after her passing, something shifted. The narrative surrounding her personal belongings grew increasingly unclear. Various interpretations of events suggest that while many of her possessions were expected to remain within the Spencer family, others entered a far more complex space. A space where ownership blurred into custodianship, where legacy became something to be managed, rather than simply remembered. It is within this uncertainty that the questions begin to deepen. Some accounts claim the tiara never left Spencer's hands, quietly preserved away from public attention. Others, however, suggest a different reality, one in which certain items, deemed too significant, were placed under royal oversight. Not publicly, not formally acknowledged, but quietly, deliberately, and without explanation. Insiders whisper that this was framed as protection, preservation, a way to safeguard history. But to others, it felt like something else entirely. Control. Because the tiara was never just about tradition. It carried narrative weight. It told a story that did not always align with the institution's carefully maintained image. Diana's legacy has always existed in a delicate balance, celebrated by the public, yet, at times, cautiously handled by the very system she once stood within. And in that tension lies the true significance of the tiara's disappearance. It wasn't merely removed from sight, it was removed from the conversation. Now, with its sudden return to the center of attention, that silence has been broken. Public fascination has surged once again, not simply because of the object itself, but because of what it represents. A connection to a figure who continues to shape the monarchy's emotional landscape long after her passing. A reminder that some stories cannot be contained, no matter how carefully they are managed. And as discussions grow louder, one question continues to echo with increasing urgency. But if the tiara belonged to Diana's bloodline, the question became impossible to ignore: why was it locked away in a royal vault at all? Behind closed doors, the fate of Diana's most personal treasures may not have been as straightforward as the public was led to believe. Because whispers now suggest that the Spencer tiara wasn't just stored, it was withheld. In the quiet aftermath of Diana, Princess of Wales's passing, the world saw grief, ceremony, and carefully constructed unity. But beneath that surface, reports suggest something far more complicated was unfolding: an unspoken struggle over what would remain personal and what would quietly become institutional. Various interpretations of that period describe a delicate, almost invisible negotiation. Not one carried out in public statements or legal declarations, but in private conversations, controlled decisions, and moments that never made it beyond palace walls. Because Diana's belongings were never just belongings. They were symbols. And symbols, within the monarchy, are rarely left unguarded.